Jai Gurudev. This book is The Spiritual Training and Adoration of Life Deity by Pandit Sriram Sharma Acharya. Spiritual Training of Life, Secret of Spiritual Knowledge. It is human nature to ignore things which are too close or at a great distance. This applies to every aspect of life. We live every moment of life but do not understand its glory. We are unaware of super-neutral divine powers which can be attained by proper use of life. Man takes birth, fulfills his natural instincts of food, indulgence, earning livelihood, and ultimately passes away. There are rare moments when it is pondered that human life is the greatest gift of God's treasure. One who has been gifted so kindly with human life is expected to make its best use, fulfill his imperfections, and become great. He is expected, like an efficient gardener, to maintain and beautify this garden of universe and prove that he has appropriate knowledge of what is selfishness and what is universal good. Our interest lies in getting rid of unwholesomeness and sensuality and imbibing righteousness in adequate proportion. Those who succeed in not only safeguarding their own welfare, but help countless people in crossing over difficulties, only such people are great, praiseworthy, and imitable. They get triple pleasures of fulfillment, satisfaction, and peace. Human life is a precious God gift. When it is entrusted, it is believed that a person concerned is deserving. Other living beings think and act only in relation to their physical body, but man has to discharge several duties and responsibilities as he is the successor prince of Almighty God. He has to maintain his significance and dignity. He will be regarded as a beast if he confines himself to greediness and illusion and remains engrossed in eating and creating children. It becomes all the more worse if, along with greed and infatuation, ego also overtakes him. Emergence of vanity to fulfill ambitiousness plunges man deep into the ditch of downfall and degeneration. Such a person becomes licentious, aggressive, and dangerous, and indulges in devilish activities. Eventually, his life, which was a symbol of great fortune, becomes distressed and miserable. Thus, boon becomes a curse. Both these alternatives are available to everyone. Man has to choose as he is a maker of his own destiny. There are different types of devotees. They have their own favorite deities from whom they seek favor and kindness and expect fulfillment of their aspirations. Nothing can be said who succeeds because in a state of dependence everything rests on the will of the master. The servant can only pray and entreat. This, however, does not apply in the case of Jivan Devta, God in the form of one's enlightened life. If life is trained in an appropriate manner, everything which cannot be found elsewhere can be obtained below this Kalpavriksha, a mythological tree which is supposed to grant all the desires of a person who sits below it. Atom is the smallest form of this universe. Scientists have unanimously accepted that whatever is found in this universe is present in the smallest ingredient of matter. The other aspect of this theory is that the individual soul is small, but entire symbol of the great power, universal consciousness. According to Vedanta philosophy, refined soul is God. All defined power, according to Indian philosophy, reside in the physical body. If they could be awakened and known supersensuous, unknown divine powers can be aroused and activated. Ascetics, yogi, great thinkers, and saints are gifted with such potentialities. Truth is eternal and perpetual. What has happened in the past can happen now. Great spiritual powers can be acquired by training one's life in the form of God. The saying about musk deer is well known. If one blunders upon to find by fluke and searches outside, he will get nothing but exhaustion and irritation. Peace is attained when it is discovered that the contra of fragrance is one's own navel. It is futile to search God elsewhere. God is beyond the limits of time and space. He is beyond the limits of time. He is formless. He can be seen only in one's inner self. Our entire life is God's direct manifestation. Gita says that God is merged, incorporated in human faith. Man is molded according to his own belief. A person who incorporates greatness within him is bound to become great. God is powerful enough to accomplish everything. He is majestic and magnificent. Man, his symbolic representative, successor prince, is also accomplished with all his attributes. The difficulty, however, is that the intensity of self-oblivion and darkness of ignorance covers the reality. Man stumbles at every step. When in darkness, bush appears to him to be a ghost, and rope a snake. But when there is light, everything appears as it is. Self-knowledge, Atmabodh, is advent of that light, which man gets a glimpse of his real form. No time is then taken in searching the path. The story of a young cub or lion having been brought up in a flock of sheep is well known. The atmosphere prevalence around us drags us, but when self-knowledge dawns, it is fully realized that one's own inner self is pure, enlightened, and transcendental. The saying that man is God who has lost his way and gone astray hardly needs analysis. All problems are solved if this bewilderness is brought to an end, and then there is deliverance from all worldly bonds. Liberation is nothing else but getting rid of inappropriate thinking about one's own self. A spider weaves web, gets entangled in it, and becomes restless, but when it determines, it winds up the web and swallows itself. Worthless, insignificant life is man's own creation. What we wish and think gets materialized in due course. If we want to change our circumstances, we have to change our convinced inferior. Most can be made superior most. A petty man can become great. The principle of attaining supernatural divine powers, siddhis, by spiritual training, sadhana, is well known. The question is, who should be worshipped? Nothing can be said about the form and nature of different divine powers. The organization of this universe is well planned. The sun, moon, air are universal. God, too, is omnipotent and universal. How can he have different forms, nature, and qualities? How can then one arrive at the truth? The real answer to this question is that life itself should be regarded as living, awakened God. Filth and impurities which have covered life should be removed. When live coal is covered with a layer of ash, it appears black. When this layer is removed, hidden bright fire becomes clearly visible. The object of spiritual training is simply to remove this covering. Spiritualists have indicated several ways of spiritual training. If they are seriously analyzed, it would appear that all symbolic worships are nothing but elementary exposition of self-refinement. The object behind all yoga and tap is to enhance one's own worthiness and sharpness. Worthiness is a magnet which easily attracts useful elements and power. The magnet of developed divinity in man attracts useful elements and powers towards him. Reservoirs are always deep as water from all surrounding areas collects in them. The snow deposits on high hilltops melt on account of heat, and the resultant water reaches the sea through rivers. This is known as worthiness or capability. The basic purpose of spiritual training is enhancement of one's own worthiness. God does not need persuasion or appeasement. He is not pleased by insignificant gifts, worship, praises, and exaltations. Only mean persons have such a nature. God is just and prudent. He is pleased and showers blessings on the basis of glory, which emerges as a result of permeation of idealism in man's personality. The childish game of trying to allure him results in disappointment. The ascetic asks, "For whom should we worship?" The emphatic answer is, we should worship for the God within us, Atmadev. The real criterion of cent% perfection of a person can be judged only on the basis of genuineness of his thoughts, character, and behavior. Fruits flowers do not fall on the tree from the sky. Trees grow and bear fruits and flowers when their roots suck juice from the earth. Roots are within us, which influence the entire personality. It ultimately leads to magnificence and attainment of natural powers, on the basis of which dual advantage of spiritual greatness and material advancement can be attained. This is the coordinated form of upasana, worship, sadhana, spiritual training, and aradhana, adoration. This spiritual training essentially leads to success. One gets nothing by begging and entreating. God helps those who help themselves. Spiritual training of life is nothing but practicing self-refinement and self-purification. This is the greatest and ultimate object of human pursuit. Those who have understood this ultimate truth have realized the secret behind spiritual knowledge. Confluence of triple tests. The meeting place of holy rivers Ganga, Yamuna, and Saraswati is known as the Triveni juncture. According to mythology, Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh are the supreme gods of creation, sustenance, and annihilation. Saraswati, Lakshmi, and Kali are embodiment of divine powers. Gayatri, the goddess of wisdom, has three phases which are known as Vedmata, mother of knowledge, Devmata, mother of divine powers, and Vishwamata, mother of universe. There are three aspects of life which are known as thinking, character, and behavior. They have been described as divine power, life, and nature, or to be more exact, as divine power, life, soul, physical body, and world. This trinity is visible everywhere. On this basis, various activities of nature are in vogue in the form of origin, sustenance, and annihilation. Soul, physical body, and matter, these are three constituents of human life. Everyone tries to make his body healthy and beautiful and his or her soul refined and cultured. He wants to become materially. Training of life, Jivan Sadhana, consists in proper coordination of these three phases of life to maintain progress and peace. Chief among them is consciousness, which may also be called soul. One's outlook is formed according to the level of his consciousness. It is soul, the inner self of man, which decides which direction his desires, sentiments, and beliefs should take. His characteristics, actions, and nature are molded accordingly. In the spiritual side of man, which decides what he has to do, in which direction he has to move, spiritual power has therefore been regarded as foremost, wealth, and success. On its basis, man exercises self-restraint and improves health. His mind becomes vigorous, virile, and brilliant. The spiritual training of life therefore means spiritual progress, upliftment of the inner structure of physical well-being, success, and meaningful aim of life could be attained. The universal method of spiritual progress is self-restraining. It may also be called symbolic worship, is nothing but this practice, which is also known as yoga abhyas, tapascharya, jap, Pranayama, meditation. Different religions and sects have different methods of worship, but all have the same object of self-training and awakening of emotional sensitivity. Devoid of such objective, symbolic worship would result in treading a beaten track. A lifeless body, although it has the same shape, is unable to do anything. In the same way, rituals and symbolic worship will not be able to fulfill the purpose of spiritual advancement in the absence of upliftment of emotional empathy. This is what is going on these days. People somehow fulfill rituals and formalities of worship, but never care to arouse emotional sensitivity. The result is that there are no symptoms of development in the life of most of the people. There is no sense in wishful thinking that desired boons will be grabbed by pleasing God by performing such rituals. God is not one who takes bribe or like flattery. One should therefore fully understand the reality and not waste time in blindly following mob mentality of indulging in symbolic worship and performing rituals without understanding the real meaning behind them, so that the object of attaining all-around progress may be easily achieved. Food, water, and air are essentially needed for maintaining the body. Similarly, for fulfilling the need of spiritual advancement, upasana, worship, sadhana, spiritual training, and aradhana, adoration and benevolence, are the three essentials. Upasana, worship, means sitting near and establishing close relationship with God. God has no form. His image, effigy, or portrait are established for the sake of convenience of meditation and contemplation. One can have a glimpse of God and establish a close relationship, close proximity with Him only by devotion through exalted thinking and idealistic emotional upsurge. God is embodiment of all divine virtues. If He has to be worshipped in some form, close relationship and deep love has to be established in some imaginary idol, image, or portrait. Great people like Ram, Krishna, Buddha, Gandhi, etc., who sacrificed their life for public good and fulfillment of high ideals, may be regarded as some partial incarnations and can be worshipped as one's own favorite deity. Everything which is done to establish proximity with higher ideals, virtues, and sentiments is known as upasana. Next comes sadhana, spiritual training. In other words, spiritual training of life means character building. Incorporation of devotion, love, and emotional sensitivity in one's thinking comes under the purview of worship. Physical routine, development of virtues, eradication of evil tendencies, etc., come under the virtue of spiritual training. Spiritual training of life is taming of life, which implies leading a well-planned, disciplined, self-restrained life routine. Just as a circus artist trains and tames ferocious wild animals, a farmer turns uneven, rough, rugged land into plain, fertile land, a gardener develops a beautiful, well-planned, attractive garden. So also a devotee makes magnificent use of all the grandeur of human life by spiritual training. It is a process by which one's individuality is made pure, authentic, and brilliant. Then alone it is possible for God to descend in human life. Best dyeing of clothes is possible only if they are dully washed. Divine blessings shower on men of character. They become true devotees of God and get divine powers, self-realization, and ordinary life they become great and divine men as all characteristics of culture, goodwill, modesty, politeness emerge in them. Third phase is aradhana, which is known as adoration or reverence. In other words, it is known as the heights good, beneficent, benevolence, or charity. Man is a social being. He is indebted to the society. One has to become benevolent to discharge this debt. Aradhana implies remaining engrossed in serving humanity, the universe, its objects, and living beings, as this world is physical manifestation of God. Sadhana, swadhyay, sayam, these four are essential for all-round progress. Regular study and self-restraint are needed in jivan sadhana. Regular contributions of one's time, money, and voluntary labor have to be made for promoting public welfare. Self-restraint, sayam, can be exercised by a person himself in body, mind, and behavior. But for rendering human service, he has to contribute in the form of applying his time and resources. A significant portion of one's own self-earned income should regularly be used for undertaking benevolent activities of public welfare. The triple activity worship, upasana, the process of refining one's own thinking, character, and behavior, should be made regular daily routine of life. Man has to take food, do exercise, and sleep daily. Irregularity in any of these activities affects health adversely and disturbs daily routine. Life is a well-planned system. Man should avoid indulging in daydreaming or building castles in the air. Even animals, birds live regular, natural lives. Man is a precious gem of God's creation. He has not only to maintain himself, but fulfill his responsibilities and duties. He has to maintain dignity, magnanimity, observe moderation, and abandon certain prohibitions. He has to exert piously and honestly for universal good, for which he gets uninterrupted flow of blessings from God. Spiritual training of life is a cash transaction. One has not to wait for an indefinite period for getting its return. The saying, early sow, early mow, materializes at every step. If spiritual training is performed correctly, logically, with prudence, it immediately results in abandoning accumulated beastly tendencies as stringent sins and impurities. The devotee feels that there is a constant development in his personality, and he is advancing towards divinity as a result of excellence. This achievement of high ideals can be regarded as success and meaningful of human life. It is advent to divinity in man. In philosophical language, it is known as God realization or liberation from worldly bondage. Man remains deprived of these obvious achievements because the philosophy of spiritual training of life is not properly understood and for want of knowledge is not correctly practiced. Liberation from triple worldly bonds. Sadhana means training, taming. This is what animal trainers do. They tame and train impertinent, crude animals so methodically that they become domesticated, habituated, and useful for the trainers. It has been observed that the devotee considers God a fool. He finds fault with him, accuses him, and tries to tame him. At the same time, he beseeches very humbly, allures him by offering insignificant presents, and tries to serve his own ends. It is understood that God can be seduced merely by talkativeness of tongue and physical maneuverings, although even in ordinary life there can be no transaction without giving and taking. This error makes a man atheist in disguise. Apparently, people who deny existence of God on account of his invisibility are considered atheists, but parasitic persons who seek favor and fulfillment of worldly desires from God are atheists in disguise. Man contravenes all laws and rules of conduct, but it is not possible for God to violate the divine rule of outcome of one's deeds, karmafal. The so-called devotees therefore get disappointed. On account of this disappointment and grouch, they blame the method of spiritual training and profound mercilessness of God. Of course, some hypocrites who remain empty-handed falsely praise the success of their achievements. The present-day theism is entangled in this mockery and has almost reached the state of atheism. What is needed is to get rid of illusion and adopt a reality. It should be taken for granted that spiritual training alone lends to spiritual health and strength. A devotee has not to wait for his death to attain exhilaration or spiritual powers and all other advantages described in ancient scripture. If we trace the history of true saints, we find that although their actual worship was not so significant, they exercised utmost vigilance and never ignored high ideals and ultimate aim of life. Anybody can become a true devotee of the life deity, Jivan Devta, by incorporating faith and love and emotional sensitivity, prudence in thoughts and politeness in public behavior. He gets its reward immediately. History is full of voluminous evidence about great saints, supermen, and reformers. Each of them had to prove his or her worth on the test of outstanding eminence and excellence. Short it, none could realize God. Worship has been regarded as excellence, elegance, or decoration. Health is real beauty. Of course, a healthy person can be more decorative and elegant by clothes, ornaments, makeup, etc. Spiritual training is a device to make life healthy and wholesome. There is added excellence and elegance if it is supplemented by worship, puja path. No purpose can, however, be served if one tries to beautify a sick, worn-out, or dead person by makeup or decoration. Such an attempt will be regarded as ridiculous. On the contrary, if a stout, robust wrestler steps into the arena with a strip of cloth tucked around his waist, he will look elegant. Therefore, persons who make their life wholesome and cultured achieve the goal even if they find little time for ceremonial worship. The devotees of spiritual science have to bring about fundamental change in their outlook. They believe that human life, which is precious, trust should be used in such a manner so that along with material well-being, man may attain the ultimate end of spiritual perfection and assert before God. There are the great obstacles in this path. They are known as Ravan, Kumbhakarna, and Meghnad. In Devi Bhagwat, they have been described as Mahisasur, Madhukaitab, and Rakbij. They are greed, attachment, or infatuation, and egotism, which result in passion, craving, and vanity. On account of these three elements, man degenerates, meets humiliation, and leads life almost of an animal, devil, or ghost. In public life, the principle of simple living and high thinking has to be adopted. A person should lead life of an average citizen based on honest and hard, self-earned income. A greedy man cannot fulfill his cravings unless he adopts immoral means. An extravagant man who spends lavishly compels others to lead a life of deficiency. Indian scriptures have described accumulation as a sin. Extravagant and luxurious people and those who accumulate money have been condemned. There is nothing wrong in earning more. However, like King Janak, limited amount should be spent on personal living, and the rest should be utilized in upliftment of the downtrodden and growth of righteous tendencies. A thrifty person saves himself from licentiousness and addiction. He never becomes so passionate as to indulge in misconduct and immorality. This has been the tradition with saints, Brahmars. Modesty of gentlemen flourishes on this very basis. Every aspirant of spiritual training should try to control this first obstacle named greed. Attachment or infatuation is either with certain persons or objects, limiting, within a limited range. Infatuation. If attachment persists, broad-mindedness cannot flourish. Man does not see anything beyond himself and his family. He gets fully consumed and ruined in looking after them all the time. There are two important spiritual principles. All living beings should be considered like one's own self, Atmavat Sarvabhuteshu, and the entire world should be regarded as a family, Vasudevam Kutumbakam. Such a person will not get infatuated. One should, therefore, visualize himself in each and every one and everyone in one's own self. Family should be as small as possible. When duty towards elder persons and dependents already living cannot well be discharged, why should new guests be invited? Looking to the present difficult times, it is foolishness of the first order to enlarge one's family. There is nothing wrong in getting married, provided one gets accompaniment, having similar thoughts. This should be done for extending mutual help and for advancing on the path of progress. Those who have cravings for issues can adopt and preparing children of poor people. It is enough to make family members self-dependent and cultured. None should commit the mistake of leaving in succession after death abundant wealth for progeny. Freely got money is lavishly spent. It cannot be digested. Ill-gotten money invites vices and perversity. If the issues are burdened with this load, it is bound to ruin them. Family responsibilities should be discharged, but one should not get involved in the mess so deep that it may be difficult to get rid of it. Infatuation has been regarded as a chiefly worldly, though entangled in its limits can hardly fulfill their duty of rendering public service. He who regards everyone as his own family member takes pleasure in helping and serving all. Broadly speaking, egotism is considered to be pride or vanity. Arrogance, impudence, indecency, anger, all these signs are egotism. But actually, it is more minute and extensive. Fashion, ornamentation, makeup, pomp and show, extravagance, false dignity are all its family members. People are seen wasting a lot of time, labor, and money in bragging and boasting. This is a sort of intoxication in which man remains engrossed, but every prudent man gets smell of meanness and childishness in it. For this mockery, strange deceits have to be coined. Ego plays an important role in jealousy and ill will, and creates disputes. Man's speciality lies in his politeness in paying respect to others. An egotist is devoid of all virtues. Ego is a suicidal enemy. Such persons can never become spiritualists. They are impertinent and are always under a terrible emotional pressure to pull down and insult others. Such people are always engaged in self-praise and condemning others. How can they find time for self-upliftment and self-refinement? A person who has put heavy loads of greed, attachment, and vanity on his head cannot reach his destination although he may perform any amount of worship. There is no other way to get rid of these three enemies. Light objects float on the water, but heavy ones drown in it. Those who have loaded heavy burdens of greed, infatuation, and egotism will have to drown in this ocean of mundane existence. There are thousands. At the root of them all are greed, attachment, and egotism, which have grasped the physical, subtle, and causal body of a man. Unless they are eradicated, which is known as deliverance, the three should be regarded as one's enemy. Efforts should be made every day to get rid of them. No doubt, this cannot be accomplished in a day, but if the process of reformation is continued, success is bound to be achieved. Meaningful, easy, and wholesome spiritual training. Body is more important than matter, and soul is more important than body. Similarly, prosperity, progress, and efficiency and internal brilliance are stepped by higher. Internal faith is the magnificence which refines thinking, character, and behavior, and makes man's personality brilliant, authentic, and talented. On this basis, there is an emergence of competence which is the source of all successes. All other powers can be acquired on the basis of spiritual power, and then it is possible to utilize one's achievements in the best possible manner. Adverse circumstances can be made favorable on the basis of excellence and personality. There have been innumerable persons whose initial circumstances were insignificant, and even bare subsistence was a problem. Yet they became trustworthy and attractive for all on account of genuineness of character. Their magnetism made people, resources, and circumstances quite favorable. They coordinated human pursuit and hard work with goodwill and kindly feeling and went on progressing day by day. Ultimately, they reached the summit of success. This achievement is known as miracle of spiritual power. On the contrary, there are occasions where, in spite of all favorable circumstances, people degenerated day by day on account of foolishness. They squandered money earned by their ancestors in addictions and went on ruining their wealth and competence in laziness and negligence. Some proceeded on the path of immorality and malpractice and were forced into miserable plight. In spite of the facilities, they became most unhappy on account of vulgarity. Of all the powers, one of consciousness is the greatest. Railways, ships, factories are all man-made. New scientific inventions have almost become a matter of daily routine. Religion and philosophy, manners and morals are all man's creations. The concept of giving some form to God is the result of human wisdom. Man has transformed this crude, past surface of earth into a world full of beauties. A man should not be considered confined to physical body or material wealth. Specialties are linked with chetna, inner consciousness. This can, by efforts, be raised or pulled down. Building one's body or making it weak depends upon the lifestyle of man. People become prosperous or distressed on account of their own activities. It is within one's capacity to rise or fall. A man is said to be the maker of his own destiny. Here, man means his inner conscience. It is the source of all progress. Side by side, poisonous seeds of sown fault and deficiency. Virtuous person whose inner consciousness is elevated, create atmosphere and happiness of peace. Several methods can be learnt and taught for becoming prosperous. There are gymnasiums, health centers, and hospitals for developing physical health. There are innumerable industrial, scientific, educational, and administrative institutions, but hardly is there any arrangement for developing and refining man's consciousness on meaningful, useful, comprehensive basis. Pragya Yoga is a device for developing spiritual prudence, insight, and intuition. In ordinary conversation, it is known as spiritual training of life. It comprises of repeating sacred Vedic hymns, mantras known as jap, meditation, dhyan, pranayama, to control vital and self-restraint. It includes all aspects which stimulate human glory and remove obstacles. Physical restraint, sayam, and proper and best utilization of time, money, and thoughts are its inseparable constituents. constituents. Eradication of defects and evil mental impressions have been emphasized. Concentration and practice are essential if a person has to become a man of character, far-sighted and industrious. What is needed is wholesomeness and perfection. The devotee should be religious-minded while discharging his duties. He should try to live within his own inner self and adopt high ideals and far-sightedness. When all these precautions are taken, the devotee attains the stage of self-purification, Atma Parishkar. This is easy, possible, and natural for everyone. There can be different methods for self-purification, but from experiments conducted by Pragya Fraternity, it has been observed that those undertaken by it are comparatively more easy, logical, and systematic. The importance of inner development has to be realized. Progress of a nation and its people is not confined to its material wealth, education, and efficiency. The source and basis of all kinds of products, progress, and personalities rich in culture and gentleness. If there is a lack of inner power, narrow selfishness will prevail, and in that event, no idealistic philanthropic purpose would be served. Here the maxim, accomplished one thing perfectly and everything will be accomplished fully, applies. Man loaded with several kinds of prosperities and specialties can accumulate wealth on the strength of his skill. He can elicit tumultuous, cheap applause, but will prove counterfeit and touchstone of man glory. A false man can confuse or mislead other persons. Songs, but cannot be cultured, noble, elevated man known as great men. Internal excellence has been the chief factor in great persons of saint tradition who could perform great deeds of human pursuit and change the era. In individual life that enjoys self-satisfaction, public respect, and divine pleasure, their actions and personality became exemplary and imitable, and inspire downtrodden persons in their upliftment. This is fulfillment of life's aim. The spiritual training of life in accordance with Pragya Yoga fulfills this great objective. 4 aspects of practical sadhana. Success can be achieved only by following the path of progress and coordinating knowledge with action. After understanding real form of spiritual philosophy, there comes the next phase of materializing it into actions. The basic philosophy of spirituality lies within 2 words, self-refinement and self-development. The object of worship is to fulfill the need of self-education with the help of certain ritualistic activities. No ritual can be complete unless the feeling underlying it are fully understood and assimilated. Nothing can be expected if one worship mechanically like a game of magic. The method of Pragya Yoga is being laid down here so that many people get maximum success in a short amount and fulfill their object. There are 2 models of daily worship, Sandhya, of Pragya Yoga, which are extremely easy, although important. Soon after getting up in the morning, one should feel that every day is a new birth. In the night, while going to sleep, it should be felt that sleep is a form of daily death. Both these practices should be performed in the bed for 15 minutes. Life and death are the 2 ends of existence. Sowing and reaping are 2 important agricultural operations. The rest is ordinary process, which prolongs for a long time. Ordinarily, Sandhya is performed at the time of twilight, sunrise in the morning, and sunset in the evening, but this spiritual practice should be performed as indicated above, daily in the bed, soon after getting up in the morning and while going to sleep in the night. The first practice of Pragya Yoga is known as self-knowledge, Atmabodh. As soon as one gets up, he should think that he is born today. He has to live only for a day and sleep in the lap of death in the night. The greatest aim of life is to utilize this intervening time in the best possible manner. This is testing time, and on it depends all prospects of future. Prudence lies in making best use of human birth, which is regarded as the greatest fortune. Soon after getting up, each day should be regarded as full of life, and it should be pondered how this valuable trust of God should be utilized for the purpose for which it has been granted. On this basis, the routine for the entire day should be chalked out. This thinking and pondering should not take more than 15 minutes. Care should be taken to fulfill the schedule during the day. If something has been left out, it should be completed on the following day. Other worship, Sandhya, is performed in the night while going to sleep. It should be thought that death is shortly being embraced. It will have to be answered in the royal court of God how today's time has been utilized. The activities and thoughts of the entire day should be reviewed. It should be judged and analyzed impartially, what was right and where a mistake was committed. The self should be praised for anything done or thought to be decided to rectify on the next day. The authors of ancient scriptures have directed that sins committed have to be atoned for and indemnified. Today's time which has been spent cannot be brought back, but it can be expedited and indemnified the next day. This will add to the next day's workload, but there is no other go. Death is certain. People forget it and spend life in useless activities. Human birth is extremely rare. It should be spent in such a way so that future may be bright. Man hope to attain divinity, and other people may get inspiration to imitate. If man sleeps carefree in the night, he can hope to get peace during the period after death and before rebirth. If the day is spent happily, there will be sound sleep in the night. If the day is spent peacefully and in the best possible manner, man will not suffer agonies of hell after death and will enjoy divine peace. This process is known as attainment of real knowledge, Tattvabodh. There are two other phases of Pragya Yoga, devotion, bhajan, and contemplation, manan, which are to be done in the day. One should sit in a cross-legged sitting posture for worship and devotion. Water I sipped and sprinkled on the body, and the process of Pavitrikaran, Sinchan, Achman. Gayatri, the goddess of wisdom, or a burning lamp, is installed in the form of favorite deity and is worshipped with water, grains of rice, flowers, incense, lighted lamp, and naivedya offering, whatever is available. It is imagined that the qualities of the articles which are being used in worship are being imbibed in life. Sandalwood makes the surrounding areas perfumed. Lighted lamp spreads light of knowledge all around. Flowers inspire to laugh heartily. Water is symbol of coolness. Offerings in the form of grains of rice and sweets signify one's determination to donate time and money for philanthropic purposes. Favorite god, Ishtadev, has to be regarded as aggregate or accumulation of all divine virtues and righteousness. With these belief worships, devotion should be completed. Now comes the state of Jap, chanting the Gayatri Mantra and Dhyan meditation. Both these should go together. Gayatri Jap can be performed mentally also. Counting can be done on the basis of time taken. Those interested in some other mantra can adopt it. Omkar mantra is also universally recognized. With Jap, the rising bright golden sun of morning is meditated upon. It should be imagined that we are sitting in an uncovered body facing the sun. The sun rays of the favorite god are entering into the physical, subtle, and causal body. These rays are a symbol of splendor and energy. Splendor means light, prudence and energy means power. Aggregation of splendor and energy of light and power is entering into and influencing these three forms of body. It should be visualized that health and self-restraint, far-sighted wisdom and courage, and faith and goodwill are entering into physical, subtle, and causal body respectively in the form of sun rays and inspiring the entire existence. This meditation should be continued along with japa during the fixed time, and at the end, water should be offered in libation before the sun by the way of a final offering, Purnahuti. This signifies surrendering the individual self in the form of water to the Almighty God. This much alone is worship devotion. If during journey it is not possible to sit at the flexed place, all the worship can be performed mentally. The fourth phase of Pragya Yoga is contemplation, manan. This can be done at any time in the afternoon for 15 minutes. In this, one has to review his present state and position. If anything is found lacking, it should be planned how it can be fulfilled. Contemplation is done in a solitary place with eyes closed. It is necessary to become introversive and chalk out in the presence of one's inner self the plan of cleansing and refinement. Whatever has been done from morning till afternoon should be tested, and whatever has to be done till one goes to sleep should be planned, so that the latter half of the day may be spent better than the former half. There are 4 standards of self-review. There are self-restraint of organs, self-restraint of money, and self-restraint of thoughts. It should be examined that there is no violation in respect of any of these restraints. Tongue should not be allowed to eat forbidden materials and speak old and cultured language. Sexuality, amorousness has to be avoided. Self-restraint of organs is an unfailing remedy for maintaining physical and mental health. Restraint of time implies best utilization of every moment. Not a single moment should be spent in laziness, carelessness, addictions, vices, etc. Full alertness has to be exercised to secure and safeguard best utilization of time. Time alone is life. Third one is self-restraint of money. Money should be earned by hard, honest work. None should resort to dishonest and other parasitic earnings. Everyone should lead life of an average citizen and adopt the policy of simple living, high thinking. It is foolishness to spend anything in amorous playfulness and show. Money should not be misspent on evil traditions. Only those who spend money with far-sighted wisdom and apply a part of their savings in philanthropic pursuits get the credit of amassing wealth of sacredness and righteousness. Fourth is self-restraint of thoughts. Mind thinks every moment. Far-sighted wisdom should be appointed as a guard to watch so that thoughts may not be absurd, scattered, and immoral. It should be assigned the job of defeating evil thoughts by good thoughts and replace crude thoughts by constructive ones. Thought is the greatest power of man. It materializes in the form of action. Circumstances, too, are creations of one's thoughts. Constructive thoughts get the credit of making human life Kalpavriksha, a mythological tree supposed to grant all desires. Keeping this in view, mind should always be kept engaged in high-level constructive thoughts. Sadhana, spiritual training, Swadhyay, spiritual study and practice, Sanyam, self-restraint, and Seva, service, are 4 spiritual pursuits which are responsible for progress and success in life. They should find important place in daily routine. Afternoon contemplation should be done to promote 4-fold process of self-review, self-reformation, self-construction, and self-development. This should be regarded as spiritual philosophy, which in due course results in God realization. Definite formulas of spiritual training of life. 4 aspects of worship have been discussed in previous pages. They are thinking about new birth soon after getting up in the morning and daily death at the time of going to sleep. The third one is morning devotion in the form of jap, and fourth one is contemplation in the afternoon, reviewing one's own position. These can be made a part of a daily routine after practicing for a few days. To establish close affinity with one's favorite God is real devotion. It is on this basis that duality can be converted into unity, and reality of embracing God, who is aggregate of all virtues, can be achieved. Aspirations of politeness, goodwill, magnificence, and affectionate service surge into the heart of a devotee. After coming into contact with fire, fuel also becomes fire. A devotee should be in full conformity with his favorite God. Devotion and sentiments of a devotee and the grace of God on him can also be judged on this basis. Rays of sun are bound to transmit heat and light. With proximity of God, there is definite emergence of qualities of authenticity and brilliance in the devotee, and his thinking, character, and behavior gets refined. True and false devotee can be tested on this basis instantaneously. Other basis of self-development is sadhana, sasana. Sasana means jivan sadhana, taming of training of life. It means conversion of a confused, scattered mind into a well-organized one. For this, 2 efforts are required to be made continuously. First one is to examine inner habitual evil tendencies minutely and to struggle hard and try to eradicate them. Secondly, there should be restlessness if righteous tendencies benefiting human dignity are found lacking. This is an essential part of spiritual training of life. Although this is an uphill task, it is not impossible. A tortoise can score victory although it walks slowly. Rabbits who show momentary enthusiasm, change their mind and go astray, are sure to lose. Those who are steady, devoted, and fully engrossed in the pursuit are bound to succeed in their efforts of spiritual training of life. A farmer picks up pebbles, stone pieces, and undertakes weeding operations in his field. He guards the field from animals, birds. All this is a known process of purification. The field also needs watering and manuring. This is the aspect of applying nourishment. All these operations are necessary to grow crops. The same policy has to be adopted in respect of development of life. Excretion of urine and feces, perspiration, cough, etc. help in cleaning the body. Taking a bath also serves the same purpose. This is all done to avoid virus infection. Several efforts are also made for protection against heat and cold. Life is also a body, which has to face several dangers, pressures, and temptations. If thieves, pilferers, impostors, and impertinent persons are not neglected, they are bound to inflict irreparable injuries. Evil tendencies are interlocked with animal instincts, accumulated in human nature since past several births. The way in which surrounding people live and lead life has also its own impact. Whatever is done by most of the people is copied by others, since it is human tendency to imitate. Rarely are there people who possess far-sighted prudence to discriminate between right and wrong. Generally, people are seen adopting the prevalent path. Dry leaves and dust particles fly in the direction in which the wind blows. They have no knowledge about direction. This is the position of public mind. Royal swan who possesses power of discriminating milk from water is very, very rare. Other birds are seen eating rubbish, sweepings, insects, worms, etc. A thing that can be acquitted, but to utilize it in the best possible manner is extremely difficult. Everyone has been gifted with health, but those capable of preserving it are rare. Most people are devoid of moderation and ruin health. Utilization of wisdom is still more difficult. All people earn money, but rarely anyone utilizes every one of it for proper influence. Is often used in pulling others down, in exercising pressure and misguiding. This can be said to be the stupidity of a wise man. The common man is suffering from this disease. This is known as wandering in bewilderness, leaving the recognized highway. Same thing applies to life wealth. Entire life of a man is spent in making arrangement for food, recreation, loafing, and loitering. Mentality and circumstances of every person are different. Same thing applies in respect of vices and virtues. Only by self-review can one judge and analyze which virtues and qualities of goodness and pureness have to be developed in accordance with one's habit and nature. There cannot be any hard and fast rule for this. This has to be accomplished by everyone individually. Others can only advise others and do self-analysis himself. Of course, the difficulty is that everyone considers himself to be flawless, endowed with all virtues. This state of mind is impediment in reformation and development. So long as there is no realization of deficiency, how can it be fulfilled? A spiritual should, therefore, develop the tendency of being impartial. He should strictly find out his flaws and demerits. Everybody is expert in making accusations against others. The elementary need of self-review is fulfilled when this tendency is reversed. If this is not done, none can aspire to become great. What has to be done? It raises a supplementary question. What is not being done, and what unsuitable or inappropriate is being done which should not have been done, or thought of personal outlook, nature, and bent of mind of developed and cultured persons should be close, be watched, is being followed by him? If not, why? Such determination are essential for devotees. One who overlooks his faults, who does not aspire to become more brilliant and authentic, cannot be expected to attain this stage, where one can feel proud of himself. Laziness, negligence, intemperance, extravagance, intoxication, haphazardness are main defects. Two important factors responsible for the downfall are adopting undesirable thinking and inactivity or inertia. Those who are entangled in narrow selfishness become hateful in the eyes of others. Only mean people think it profitable to sever relations with virtues like eminence and higher ideals. But the fact is that such people are neglected by all. They face non-cooperation. If there is meanness in thinking, character, nature, and behavior, it should be removed just as stains of mud are required to be washed and cleaned immediately. It is insulting for anyone to loiter and be smeared in mud. To earn one's livelihood and get consumed in bringing children cannot be considered to be the aim of glorious human life. Even animals, birds, insects fulfill these responsibilities. Human life, which is a divine gift, is not so damn cheap as to be squandered so insignificantly. If the process of self-analysis and growth of virtues is continued, a person can attain the goal of virtues, and a person can attain the goal of achieving progress. Self-restraint of organs, self-restraint in respective utilization of time, self-restraint in spending money, and self-restraint of thoughts have been regarded as tapashcharya. Assets are attained by tap. Supernatural powers, siddhis, are attained by amassing such assets or riches. A person who exercises restraint and guards himself from evil tendencies become powerful and capable. This is highway leading to progress. If wisdom, honesty, responsibility, and bravery are treated as holy and sacred, they are imbibed within and made part of one's personality. Generous mentality will be formed, whereby it will be possible to share one's own happiness with misery of others. This is how human life is spiritually trained and made meaningful. Weekly and 6-monthly sadhana. Slowly and gradually, air filled in a motor tube is reduced and requires refilling. Water and coal are required to be refilled in a railway engine. Fresh diet has to be taken when the stomach becomes empty. When the same routine of life becomes prosaic, new change has to be introduced. Festivals are celebrated to inculcate new enthusiasm and smartness. Sunday is enjoyed as a holiday to get freshness and new vigor for next week's work. Institution holds celebrations and drive off idleness. Nature also does the same thing. Terrible rains, pleasing spring seasons fill the atmospheres with freshness. Man always remembers his marriage, say, also one on which he started earning and feeling vigorous. Daily routine of spiritual practices has already been indicated. The 4 daily chores which are to be performed soon after getting up and while going to sleep in the night, devotion, bhajan in the morning, and contemplation, manan in the afternoon, represent the 4 basis human pursuits of Indian philosophy. 1. Dharma, 2. Arth, 3. Kam, and 4. Moksha. These devices are more intellectual than ritual. Regularity of daily routine becomes part of nature and life gets molded accordingly. There are 2 special festivals of spiritual training. One is weekly and the other 6 monthly. Weekly one is generally observed on Sunday or Thursday. It may be any other day according to convenience. In auspicious 9 days of Ashwin and Chaitra Navratri, spiritual training and worship is done for 9 days each. It generates special power and removes slackness and lassitude. In these special weekly festivals, 4 rules viz. Fast, self-restraint of organs, accumulation of energy, and silence have to be observed. Tongue and sex organs are powerful ones. If they are controlled and regulated, it becomes possible to exercise self-restraint. If this elementary phase is accomplished, there will not be much difficulty in controlling the mind. Intemperance of tongue instigates eating undesirable objects in excess. It is also responsible for bitter, untrue, useless, loose talks. Tongue just discharges 2 functions. It tastes or relishes eatable objects. It is also the medium of speech. The vow of tastelessness, aswad, has to be developed and observed for controlling and taming the tongue. Salt, sugar, spices, sour objects make a man greedy of delicious dishes. He neglects pure, simple, and easily digestible food and craves for uneatable, forbidden food. The stomach gets spoiled as food is devoured in much more quantity. The blood becomes impure on account of decomposition and results in several diseases. To safeguard against these calamities, self-restraint of tongue fulfills the purpose of devout austerity, thup. It acts as a deterrent. It is necessary to give tongue 1 day's rest in a week so that it might be liberated from these vices. Fast is rest day for stomach to adjust irregularities committed during the week. It may not be possible to live on water alone. Vegetable soup or fruit juice, milk or buttermilk can be taken. If this also does not suffice, meals should be taken only once. If silence cannot be observed for the whole day, 2 hours silence should be observed at any convenient time. Both these fasts relating to tongue may sound symbolic, but they fulfill the purpose of concentrating on observing ethical self-restriction. Establishing of control on tongue is the first phase weekly spiritual training. The second phase is Celabic Brahmacharya. Indulgence in sex should be avoided on the day of fast. Indecent, vulgar imagination should not be entertained, and mental restraint should be observed. Man and woman should see form of God and goddess in persons of opposite sex and nurture noble sentiments of brother and sister, father and daughter, mother and son. Indecency should be regarded as immoral, and vulgar thoughts should not be allowed to be entertained. Physical self-restraint is possible only when it is combined and coordinated with mental will last during the rest of the 6 days of the week. The third exercise to be done on weekly fast day is accumulation of vital energy, Pranayama. One should sit with closed eyes, become introversive, and contemplate that the entire universe is full of powerful vital energy, Pranayama. It can be available to anyone in abundance if it is invoked or attracted. The process is known as Pranayama. There are several rules of Pranayama, but the easiest one is to sit with eyes closed, keeping the backbone straight. Both the glands should be placed on knees. Body should be still and steady, and mind should be calm. While inhaling, it should be felt that the universe vital energy is entering inside through the nose and permeating the entire organism. The body, mind, and inner self are being imbued and inspired by inflow of the vital energy. While exhaling the inhaled breath, it should be felt that the inner physical and mental perversions are going out and the door is being closed. With this elimination, one should feel quite light and imagine that he is becoming brilliant and genuine. The fourth weekly exercise is observing silence, which should be at least for 2 hours. The third exercise of Pranayama can be performed during the time when silence is observed. Besides these 4 exercises, daily worship, swadhyay, study of inspiring literature, self-restraint, sayam, and human service, seva, should be continued as already prescribed. Contribution in the form of money should be made for the growth of knowledge. It should be made a part of routine to do something for the help of the oppressed. Dissemination of spiritual knowledge is Brahmayagya, an act of religious sacrifice and oblations known as Agnihotra, of high standard with which the welfare of all living beings is linked. The day fixed for weekly celebration should be utilized in righteous deeds. Half-yearly celebrations are performed for 9 auspicious days in Ashwin and Chaitra Navratri. There is an old tradition of performing 24,000 jap of Gayatri Mantra during these days. All devotees should observe this rule. There is no distinction of caste, creed, or gender. There should be no doubt about any harm if there is a deficiency. This is a sattvic, righteous performance. The fixed figure of 24,000 is completed by repeating 27 beads of rosary daily. On the final day, Yagya Agnihotra should be performed by offering at least 24 ahutis in the sacrificial fire. Some rules have to be observed during the celebration, Anushthan period. 1. If it is not possible to observe fast, meals should be taken only once in a day. At least the vow of aswad, taking diet without salt and sugar, should be observed. 2. Brahmacharya, self-restraint of organs, should be observed. 3. As far as possible, no physical aid or service should be taken from others. The devotee should do his physical work himself. 4. Leather articles manufactured by skins of animals killed should not be used. The devotee should sleep on the ground or on a gourd bed of wooden planks instead of a cushion. The principle behind observing these rules is the hard life of devout austerity should be lived during these 9 days. what is practicing during this period will have its impact for the next 6 months, and it will be kept in mind that only self-restrained life can secure one's own as well as public good. The old tradition was to feel Brahmans, person of devout austerity, engaged in seeking knowledge and truth. Collectively, at the end of this celebration, Anustan, by way of final offering Purnahuti, this can now be fulfilled by feeding 9 virgins. These unmarried girls may belong to any caste. The belief is that being celibate, they are holy and pure in the form of goddess. The other form is distribution of prasad, sweet of offerings made to the idol or deity, so that maximum people may avail of divine blessings. Instead of distributing sweets in prasad, the desired purpose can be served better by distributing cheap, inspiring literature. Distribution of booklet, Yugnirman Satsankalp, will be best, suited for this purpose. Several such booklets have been published by Yugnirman Yojana in different languages, which can be distributed or sold on such occasions in less than the cost price. If possible, 9-day celebration Anushthan should be performed locally at one place collectively. At the end, collective yagya should be performed. Devotional songs, discourses, and collective feasting can also be arranged. Adoration, aradhana, and dissemination of real knowledge, gyan yagya. There are 3 signs of physical health. 1, good appetite. 2, sound sleep. 3, smartness or freshness for doing work. There are 3 signs of spiritual strength too. There are 1, excellent thinking. 2, faith and character. And 3, abundance of benevolence, generosity, and helpfulness in behavior. These are called worship, upasana, spiritual training, sadhana, and adoration, aradhana. The simple symptom of spiritual progress is growth of divinity in mankind. Devta, a divine man, is one who gives. In other words, he may be called a man with religious bent of mind, having a keen desire for selfless service. If there is emergence of politeness and personality, there is bound to be craving for rendering human service. There is growth of magnanimity in qualities, actions, and nature of a person who renders selfless service. Devtas, divine persons, who live on earth in the form of men, are known as bhusar. This word is used for people who belong to the saint and Brahman class. A Brahman renders service in a limited area. Saints are wandering mendicants who reach from place to place to promote growth of righteousness. They infuse like air wherever they go. They reign like clouds and flourish greenery. Whether or not a person has been benefited by spiritual progress can be judged only by the tests whether eminence in accordance with human dignity is visible in his thinking, behavior, and character, and whether the devotee has a craving for service and doing universal good. Broadly speaking, alms and donations are known as sacred summum bonum, or universal good. But it should have deep tinge of farsightedness. People afflicted by accidents or sudden calamity need immediate help. Similarly, crippled physical handicap should also get maintenance. Poor and backward people should get indirect help so they may become self-dependent. Gandhiji gave importance to kadhi so that unemployed persons may get work. Other cottage industries also fall in this category. Provision should be made if creating resources which may help in eliminating unemployment. It is the sound method for giving help to the poor. Live on others' earnings. This encourages indolence, laziness, carelessness, addictions. One who has received such alms suffers from inferiority complex, while the giver suffers from egotism. These tendencies are harmful for both. Appropriateness and the ultimate result should, therefore, always be kept in view while giving donations so that there may not be misuse in the name of charity. Imparting knowledge is the best kind of charity. This is known as Brahmayagya. Efforts which promote goodwill and righteousness are acts of doing universal good. For want of proper thinking, people adopt several vices and in vice downfall. Leaving aside physical handicapped and incapable people, the rest are fully competent to solve all their problems themselves, if they are shown a correct path of proper thinking. Therefore, for spiritual development, everyone should try his best to, according to his efficiency and circumstances, to refine public mind and promote righteousness. There is always the problem of time, and solutions have to be found out in accordance with one's own circumstances. Ancient religious narratives and discourses can hardly be of any use in prevailing trend and atmosphere. For this, one should take resort to Yug Chetna, prevailing collective spiritual consciousness. Attention has to be paid on expositions of Yug Manishis, exponents of spiritual wisdom. This can only be the correct way of promoting real knowledge. Like literacy, growth of true knowledge is the need of the hour to solve problems of individual and the society. For spiritual development of self, refinement of public mind, and promotion of righteousness, one has to get engaged in selfless service so that the religion of present era, Yug Dharma, may be established in intellectual, moral, and social spheres. All far-sighted, prudent persons should get engaged in the task of dissemination of knowledge and revolution of thoughts. Pen, speech, visual, and audiovisual, and all similar devices should be used, so that people at large may be inspired to know and materialize religion of the present era. The highest form of universal good and benevolence in present circumstances is dissemination of knowledge, Gyan Yagna. Neglecting this, no person will be served by speeches, writings, giving donation for gaining cheap popularity. Yugnirman literature is the primary need for making the consciousness sharp and brilliant. Educated persons should be taught this literature. To illiterate ones, it should be read over. Devotees of Pragya Yoga should spend their money and time in running bag libraries. It is difficult for everyone to purchase this literature, especially in these days when nothing occurs to one's mind except materialistic self-seeking. Nobody is interested in listening to anything idealistic. Devotees should therefore visit literate persons house to house, giving them books of their choice for reading and collect them back. The important purpose of spreading spiritual knowledge will thus be served. Such books should be read over to uneducated people. Thought-provoking meetings, seminars, conferences, narratives, discourses have their own importance. These are known as satsang. The activities can be performed anywhere in some form or the other with the help of pen or speech. It is more effective to set one's own example. People think that ideals are meant to be only talked about, cannot be materialized in practical life. This illusion can be dispelled if those who propound revolution in thoughts themselves act in the manner in which they expect others to do. Those who want to devote to benevolent activities of adoration, aradhana, and work selflessly for public good should display uniformity in their profession and practice. These are all essential for ideal training of the people. Still, it is not necessary that till a person attains perfection he should sit idly. As student of 6th class can render at least some help to a 5th class student, anyone can successfully guide those who are less qualified. These days, equipments can help a lot. In ancient times, books were handwritten, but now they are printed. Audio and video facilities are easily available these days. They can be used for expansion and publicity of knowledge. Equipment like tape recorders, loudspeakers, slide projectors, video cassettes can be used to fulfill the need of popular entertainment and public awakening. Writing inspiring sentences on walls is a good method. Its mechanical additions are stickers, which can be pasted on furnitures, handbags, etc. This can be a good basis for propagating good thoughts and goodwill. Wherever possible, cinema slides can also be displayed to disseminate useful and inspiration to the masses. Music parties can start publicly programs in group meetings with the help of a loudspeaker and tape recorder. Celebrations of Deep Yagna, performance of yagya by lighted lamps on such occasions have proved very easy, cheap, and successful. In the afternoon, women meetings can be arranged. Night programs may include the process of social development and reforms. In family, narratives and stories should be told in the night. Books like Pragya Puran serve this purpose very well. Mutual discussions, debate competitions, poets' conferences are useful devices. Everyone cannot be a poet, but he can arrange meetings where inspiring poems and songs can be recited. Paintings can also be exhibited wherever possible. If a man tries to search, he can lay hand on several formulas for spreading real knowledge. Much can be done in respect of bringing revolution in thoughts, growth of righteousness, and eradication of evil tendencies. When a true devotee can find God, there is no reason why it may not be possible to find out a way by which the process of spreading real knowledge may be pioneered. What is needed is to understand its importance and pay attention to it. Upasana, worship, is done of God. By sitting near God, divine virtues are imbibed, feelings and emotions are refined and developed. Sadhana, spiritual training, is performed of one's own life. Jivan sadhana refines personal identity of a man by eradication of evil tendencies and growth of righteousness. Aradhana, adoration, is of the society by serving God living in all human beings. It is accomplished by magnanimous, selfless human service. Best service is one by which pain and suffering or distressed persons are addressed and their deficiencies fulfilled. Financial help can be rendered by any rich man, but only a spiritually enlightened person can render the service of uplifting downtrodden people. In fact, this service is not by material, by divine wealth. Divine wealth never diminishes by giving. Saints, ascetics have been given prominence to service to the people who are on the verge of degeneration. They therefore become adorable in the world. Persons who were served by these saints also became great. This best form of service can be rendered by anyone through the medium of dissemination of knowledge, Gyan Yagna. Any person can be enriched by this benefit himself and get the reward of righteous deed by helping innumerable people.